You're listening to Four Things to Know, a WCCO daily news podcast.
Oh, it's finally Friday.
Let's go.
May 8th. I'm Maria Lisignoli.
I'm Johnny Connor. Thanks for listening to Four Things to Know.
So, more than 500,000 people will be out on the water this weekend for the fishing opener.
It's that time of year.
It's that time of year. That's why it's our first thing to know today. The 78th Minnesota Governor's Fishing Opener takes place in Stillwater on the St. Croix River. We caught up with Governor Tim Walz at the river this morning. He said this weekend is sort of the unofficial kickoff of summer.
It's about the economics of this, too. $4.5 billion industry in fishing. It creates a lot of jobs here, not to mention all of the memories you get. So it feels really good here, and I was said, knock on wood, it looks like my last one. There's going to be sun.
John Lortzen has more from the opener in Stillwater.
We talked this morning with the owner of a downtown cafe here in Stillwater, the owner of a bait and tackle shop, and a fishing guide who works a lot along the St. Croix River behind me about what this really means for Stillwater. They all agreed it's an exciting weekend, and they do expect a big uptick in business over the course of the weekend. Now, we also spoke with Will Isaacson of Walleye Willie's Bait and Tackle. He'll be supplying bait for the governor's opener, and he has been getting ready for some time now. He's well stocked, and he'll be selling bait on the St. Croix River tomorrow and also inside his bait shop. It'll be an early morning for Will and local fishing guides, but they think it'll be worth it.
I would imagine just because it's opener, it would be busy, but I would imagine there will be a 20%, 25% increase at least.
Normally on Minnesota opener, everybody's going up north or they're going elsewhere. We don't really have a terrible amount of heavy business. Yes, there's business, but this will draw, I think, a lot of people into town.
Yeah, and as I mentioned, we also spoke with the owner of the Main Cafe in downtown Stillwater, right on Main Street here, and she said, really, you got to keep in mind, in addition to the fishing opener, Reg, which is going to draw a lot of anglers into downtown Stillwater, we also have Mother's Day this week, and you can't forget about that. Stillwater, she says, is pretty busy for Mother's Day weekend. This will only add to the festivities and the business.
Number 2 today, Maria. Everyone loves to hate their HOA.
Right,
Fun
I know.
topic.
Sometimes people are like, what is this even going towards?
Exactly, yeah. Well, now the governor is set to sign a new Bill of Rights for people who have homeowners associations. The state of Minnesota estimates that 25% of people live in an HOA. And right now, 82% of new homes also have one. Esme Murphy explains why there was so much support for the new rules in this week's Talking Points.
Let's start with the reserve funds, because I'm told that is one of the most important things. Should your HOA have a good, solid reserve fund?
Yes, absolutely.
And that's because?
That's because one of the main jobs of the HOA is to maintain the property.
There is a whole field of law dealing with HOA disputes. Dana Oman is one of those attorneys.
The fees mandatory. Do you have to pay those, the HOA fees?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, they are.
All right. And what happens if you don't pay?
If
That's
you
probably where you get involved.
That is part of some of what I do. The association has various means to collect assessments if you're not paying them.
And what about those assessments, those big bills for that major plumbing issue or crumbling sidewalks?
Let me ask you, special assessments, what are they and do you have to pay them?
Yes, you do have to pay them. Special assessments are meant to be for projects that come up, capital improvement projects that come up that are unbudgeted. So it's usually something that is a surprise.
Can an HOA kick you out? Dana says no, but they can foreclose on you if you are behind in assessments and fines, even if your mortgage is current.
Do you have to pay for common areas with your HOA fees, even if you don't use them?
Yes. And that's because even if you're not actively using them, you're allowed to use them.
Number 3, good news for students in Minneapolis Public Schools. The district has more money than it thought because of a special education audit. MPS has $10.7 million more dollars this school year and $10.8 million more dollars next year. MPS says this money is the result of an audit by the Council of Great City Schools. That national association found that Minneapolis Public Schools needed to update their special education coding and billing practices so they could maximize revenue and reimbursement. Leaders of Minneapolis Public Schools held a news conference this morning to talk about the positive impact of this increased revenue. Here's Superintendent Dr. Lisa Sales-Adams.
By adding the equivalent of about 100 full-time positions, we are reducing the uncertainty for our families and ensuring that our students have the supports and resources they need and deserve. But while we are celebrating the increase in revenue, we must remember that school districts, including Minneapolis Public Schools, are still facing chronic underfunding.
The superintendent also said the district's budget shortfall is now $39.7 million.
And your fourth thing to know today, it is a huge night, huge weekend ahead in Minnesota sports.
Oh, that's to say the least.
Let's start with the Timberwolves tonight. Playoff action continuing at Target Center. They host Game 3 against the San Antonio Spurs. We know the Wolves are coming off a tough loss on Wednesday night. The series is tied at 1 game apiece, and this is their first home game of the second round. Now, Maria, I looked it up today. The odds makers, they have the Spurs as 4.5-point favorites tonight. So the Wolves are decent underdogs.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean we can't win, right? Tip off at 8:30. You can bet it's going to be rocking down there. The crowd has been great all playoffs, so it's going to be a lot of fun.
And playoffs really are the best, especially at home when you can get to one of those games or even to a bar downtown that has the game on. The energy is just there.
Absolutely. It's just electric. And over in St. Paul tonight, we got another big game to talk about. The Frost, they're facing a must-win situation.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, last night at Grand Casino Arena, the Frost, they lost Game 3 of their series with Montreal. Now, the Frost, we know they're back-to-back Walter Cup champs, but they only scored once last night, Montreal beating them 2-1. So now Montreal leading the series 2-1 in the best of 5. So the Frost really need this one tonight. Puck drop is at 7:30.
I did watch last night's Frost game, and it was intense for sure, but not as intense, I felt like, as the previous one where they lost in triple overtime. I felt like they just didn't have it in them last night.
Yeah, probably a lot of loss of energy, right? And now they're on a back-to-back. It's pretty weird in the playoffs when you get back-to-back games.
Wild.
Because obviously the Wild are playing tomorrow, so I think both teams, using the same arena, right? It's just creating some scheduling difficulties. Yeah.
That's true. Oh, that arena's going to be packed.
It's that time of year. Yeah, well, let's get wins tonight. Those are the 4 things to know today. And before we do get to our weather forecast, a red flag warning is in effect this afternoon due to extreme fire risk in central and northwestern Minnesota. The DNR says it's issued the warning for 24 counties from 1 until 6. Now, Maria, Hennepin County, where we are, not one of those counties. So I know you said you have a bonfire tonight.
Right. Here in Hennepin County. So we'll just be careful. I know it's not on the list, but still, always be careful. We'll have our hose on and, have it ready. And on that note, make sure that any past burn sites have been completely put out just so that we're all safe here.
Absolutely.
It's that time of year. It's been really dry out too. So, fire hazards for sure. Okay, now let's check in on our next weather forecast.
Happy Friday, guys. Next weather meteorologist Adam Del Rosso checking in on what's shaping up to be a pretty spring-like weekend here. It's not going to be quite as warm as what we've got on tap this afternoon, but still not bad. We'll be falling back through the 60s and 50s this evening and eventually dipping down into the upper 40s for our overnight lows tonight. There's going to be a little bit more in the way of cloud cover tonight with a weak disturbance moving on by. That could also lead to an isolated shower while we're sleeping, but shouldn't be too impactful for the fishing home opener tomorrow. I still think we see a decent amount of sunshine for our Saturday. Temperatures are going to be topping off in the low to mid 60s, which is pretty seasonable for this time of year. For Mother's Day on Sunday, again, a partly sunny sky, maybe a couple of breezes into the afternoon with high temperatures right around 60.
And now, here's more to know.
3 people have critical injuries and a 16-year-old is in custody after a shooting in Bemidji. This happened around 4:40 yesterday afternoon. Police at the scene say they found 3 adults with gunshot wounds. All 3 victims went to the hospital, which then went into lockdown as police searched for that 16-year-old. He surrendered to law enforcement 2 hours later.
Xcel Energy is going to have to pay its customers more than $40 million plus interest. The Public Utilities Commission made that decision yesterday. They say the company unfairly passed the cost of fixing a mistake onto its customers, and they need to pay their customers back. That mistake came back in 2023 when Xcel Energy employees cut through buried cables at the Prairie Island Nuclear Power Plant in Red Wing. That caused the plant to go offline for 3 months. Customers should expect a credit on their bill in the coming months.
Just yesterday, Governor Tim Walz signed a first-of-its-kind law to try and combat a terrifying new technology capable of creating porn out of an innocent picture. Now, that law was signed the same day a former school employee in the North Metro pleaded guilty to victimizing nearly 100 different children. It's all part of a process called nudification, which uses artificial intelligence to create explicit images. In the case of William Haslach, these were explicit pictures of children. He used his position as a lunch monitor, traffic guard, and summer youth programs assistant to get the pictures of minors. Haslach used those pictures to produce AI-generated photos of those minors engaging in sexually explicit conduct. On Thursday, Haslach pleaded guilty to victimizing at least 91 kids in the North Metro. We spoke to a woman who understands the pain all too well. Megan Hurley says a man she once considered a friend did the same thing to her.
It was really disturbing. It looked real. It was indistinguishable. There is no way to protect against it unless you never leave your home.
The legislation signed into law on Thursday bans these so-called nudification AI tools. It lets victims sue the companies behind the tech when it's used in Minnesota. It received bipartisan support at the Capitol before making it to Governor Walz's desk. The law will take effect in August. The civil penalties are not retroactive.
First came cannabis, and now there's a push to legalize psychedelic mushrooms in Minnesota. Research from Johns Hopkins shows that so-called magic mushrooms with psilocybin can relieve major depression, ease anxiety, and even help with alcohol abuse. It's why supporters across the political spectrum want to legalize them for therapeutic use. Yesterday, the Minnesota House tacked on an amendment to another bill to authorize this program. It would be open to 1,000 Minnesotans 21 or older with qualifying medical conditions like PTSD, chronic pain, substance use disorder, and more. Use of these psychedelic mushrooms would be under supervision in a regulated environment, the Office of Cannabis Management, which would be the key oversight committee. Here's more from Republican State Representative and bill author Max Reimer.
It's a very careful entry into this. A lot of the testimony that was heard in both the Health Committee and the Veterans Committee, you saw some really good outcomes. And the way that I look at this amendment is it creates an off-ramp for people to not get hooked necessarily into drugs on an ongoing basis, but actually use a therapeutic like this to almost rewire their brain.
The House passed the broader bill, including this provision Thursday, but the Senate has a different version without it, and they'll need to hash out the differences. If they do and Governor Walz signs this, Minnesota would be the fourth state in the country to legalize psychedelic mushrooms in supervised settings, starting out as a pilot program. There's another bill at the Capitol that would decriminalize personal use and possession of them for adults 21 and older.
This morning, the Department of Defense released hundreds of never-before-seen files on UFOs. This is part of President Trump's effort to increase transparency on government knowledge of possible extraterrestrial activity. The DoD posted new pictures on their website. The release includes one image from the Apollo 17 mission to the moon in 1972, and it shows what appears to be lights above the lunar surface. The Pentagon says all of the files have been reviewed for security purposes, but many of them have not been analyzed for the resolution of possible anomalies. The White House released a statement saying in part, quote, "The president is focused on providing maximum disclosure to the public, who can ultimately make up their own minds about the information contained in these files." You can see all the files at the website war.gov/UFO. And I did look at a couple of them, and to be honest, I mean, I don't know. They're pretty grainy. They could be anything, but I'm not saying they're not.
I'm sure they're not releasing the best images they have.
I don't
or
know.
Videos.
You're probably right, but they did say more materials will be declassified, and released on a rolling basis every few weeks.
I caught a few of them too, and there's like a quick little second you see something like burst across the screen, and that's about it.
Yeah, right. Or just like grainy pictures that military pilots took.
But I'm hoping what this allows for is scientists, astrophysicists to take a look at these that they have not been able to see because they've been classified, and maybe they can help, find out what's going on.
And just give it to the world of the internet who like has all the time in the world to just deep dive. That'd be kind of cool. I'll let the internet figure it out.
Let's talk more about sports.
Yes.
We have a wild game tomorrow, Maria, at Grand Casino Arena. Now, if you ask me, it's basically an elimination game because I looked this up earlier. Yeah. So the Wild, they're down 2-0 right now to Colorado. Yeah. If they go down 3-0, they're all but done. There's only been 4 teams in NHL history that have come back from 3-0, and there's been more than 200 series.
Whoa.
Yeah,
okay.
So they
have to win.
They have to win tomorrow. I mean, the series isn't over, but it's over.
Okay.
You know,
if they lose,
yeah, they're down 3-0.
Then they're over. But if they win,
they can win. Yeah, it's just a very important game, and it's also going to be fun tomorrow. There's a big watch party outside the arena. They're closing down West 7th Street, so head down there. That opens at 5:00. That would be a lot of fun.
Oh, that's going to be really fun. Like we talked about with the Frost and the Timberwolves. It's similar vibes, you know, everyone's coming together for all these playoff games and just having a party.
And it's going to be gorgeous out tomorrow night.
It's going to be gorgeous out. Yeah. Yes, exactly. Another big sports season is starting this weekend, too.
Yeah, the Lynx, tomorrow night, they're back with their regular season home opener. They're taking on the Atlanta Dream at 7:00. Now, if you want to check them out, tickets are still available. You can get in the door for less than $30.
Amazing.
It's time to take a breath with your Daily Bright Spot.
If you're feeling a little nosy this weekend, it's your chance to step inside some of Minneapolis's most fascinating buildings.
This sounds like fun.
Okay, pull back the curtain. Check out the historic structures, engineering wonders, and the manufacturing hubs and more during Doors Open Minneapolis. This weekend, there are 75 different venues opening their doors and giving you a behind-the-scenes look for free. Just visit doorsopenminneapolis.org for more information.
It sounds like spooky.
I know, right? You're like, what's going to be there? But it's just a bunch of different places. I saw like the Bakken Museum is going to be there. The Fauché Tower is on the list. There were a bunch of cool different ones that I would be interested in checking out.
Yeah, go with your mom.
And
Mother's Day.
Yeah, exactly. If you don't have any Mother's Day plans, here you go. Here's another thing. You can also kick off the start of art fair season at the 3rd annual Minneapolis Sculpture Garden Art Fair. This is a fun one. Yeah. I went last year.
Oh, you did go to this one last year.
I did go to this one last year, and it's just so cool to see, the sculpture garden at the Walker Art Museum. But then also there are like 180 local and regional artists. Their booths are all set up, and you can just browse through and meet the artists. That's what I love about art fairs. You meet the artists.
And it's art fair season. I mean, it's
a
big deal in the summers in Minnesota.
It really is. And we have some really talented people. So this one is happening Saturday and Sunday. And okay, here's a good Mother's Day thing. If you didn't get a Mother's Day card, they have you covered. There's a free card making station at the fair, along with other family friendly activities like, face painting, lawn games, and more.
And it's going to be beautiful out Sunday as well.
Do you have any Mother's Day plans?
We're going to do brunch. We're going to do dinner, mimosas.
Of course.
What about you, Maria?
We are going to be doing a little wine tasting. My sister is setting that. I thought this was so fun. My sister's setting this up. She's buying all different kinds of wines from different prices.
Okay.
And we're going to do like a blind taste test
and
with my mom and determine what we like the best.
So we have to debrief next week about
we'll
this.
We'll do. Yes. Oh, anything for mom. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. Thank you so much for joining us here on 4 Things to Know. With Johnny Connor, I'm Maria Lizignoli, and we're here with the news you need every weekday afternoon by 3 o'clock.
Listen to 4 Things to Know, a WCCO daily news podcast, wherever you get your podcasts.
Love podcasts? Love Minnesota?
Check out the WCCO podcast studio lineup.
Hear the top stories of the day with 4 Things to Know.
Discover top female athletes and teams from around the state on women in sports.
Dive into stories about faith and belief, from your local leaders to your neighbors next door, with Bigger Than Belief.
Stay in the know on the go with the WCCO podcast studio. Go to WCCO.com/podcasts.